Musician or artist? Okay. Now, in my interview I did yesterday with Vicky Hamilton, she views people as artists, right? And I tried to let her know that, look, after the Sunset Strip died, all those guys that were, basically the music industry said, we don't want you guys because, hair metal is gone, or metal is gone, or, if you're not a grunge band, or whatever. And she said, oh, well, an artist should, because I said, look, versatility will carry you farther. And here's the difference, right? And I couldn't, when you're interviewing somebody, right, it's important to let them speak. It's important to let them get their point. And her point was, well, if you're an artist, you can't just change your style. Although some artists do. Some artists, and she mentioned David Bowie, who changed with the times. I mean, you can mention the Rolling Stones doing different styles of music as the times changed, evolving their style. But, if you're an artist, right? If you're an artist, you're going to need a manager, right? If you're an artist, you might need a record label. If you're an artist, you might need a publicist. If you're an artist, you're selling ultimately art, right? And we've established now that, there's very little to be made on streaming your music. There's very little money to be made in that, right? And my point is this. You are an artist when you create things, right? When you're creating, you're an artist. But in order to play music, you are a musician, right? Those two things can, don't have to be aligned. Because here's the thing, the better you are as a musician, the more you'll be able to do. And I talk about this a lot on the channel. If you're a young guy tuning in, and you want to know how to have longevity, learn music, learn how to analyze music, learn how to create music, learn how to be stylistically fluid, right? Because look, a lot of people that were artists on the Sunset Strip that were playing one style of music because that's what they were good at, right? That's what they did. I know a lot of rock guitar players that spent years on the sidelines not getting paid to be a musician because, look, let's face it, rock and roll now is, it's not a super popular genre. You're not going to get paid, in a lot of situations just to be a rock guy who only knows how to solo diatonically, with a pentatonic scale. That's only going to carry you so far. So what you haven't done, perhaps, is learn how to play other styles of music. And look, if the modern metal players, man, they know all kinds of chords and they're playing all kinds of dissonance and doing all that stuff. But, it's not all bar chords now. Of course, I'm from that older generation, so, it's a great riff, but that's largely based on bar chords. But here's the thing, man. the artists of the Sunset Strip, if I'd have just said, no, I'm this artist, Bad Brad, and I only do this one thing, the artist would have starved. You've heard the term starving artist, right? And there are plenty of them out in the world. There are plenty of starving artists. What is the difference between a starving artist and a musician? Well, a musician, a well-rounded musician, is going to get called. And that well-rounded musician is going to get calls for gigs. And the well-rounded musician is going to look at his bank account and say, well, yeah, I prefer playing certain styles of music over others. But if people are calling me to play this style of music and it pays money, the musician is going to take the gig. And, you know, the reality is this, man. If you're only creating one type of art, if you're only playing in one type of band, and the rug gets pulled out on you stylistically, think about this. I've talked about it on my channel, but there is still a flyer ordinance on the Sunset Strip where you cannot hand out flyers. After all these years, you cannot go hand out flyers on the Sunset Strip. Probably one of the most damaging laws passed on the Sunset Strip to end that scene was ending the handing out of flyers, and this was brought down from above. City council, local ordinance, whatever it is, I was there when it went down. I saw what it did to the scene. All of a sudden, you didn't have, 10, 20, 30 bands out on the Strip handing out flyers, trying to promote their band as artists. And it killed the scene. Killed the scene. If I were out there now, I would be providing testimony that, look, first of all, it's not a problem anymore. There's so very few bands that would even be willing to put in that kind of work. That is work. Handing out flyers for today's generation, they want to hide behind their phones. They don't want to be out pounding the pavement, handing out flyers. But probably, and I've talked about this before, that was probably a huge part of killing the Sunset Strip scene. Not all bands on the Sunset Strip scene played, glammed out hair metal. Guns N' Roses is a testimony to that. They were just as grungy as any grunge band was, except when they left their roots and started adding all these pieces, background singers and horns and all this other stuff to their production. But man, here's the deal. Starving artist, right? I was a starving artist when I played on the Sunset Strip. I wasn't getting paid for my work. I was chasing the dream of becoming a recording artist, right? And when I moved to Nashville, I became a musician. I became somebody. And look, when I first was told, when I came to Nashville, a guy told me, he said, oh man, I'll help you find a cover band gig. I'll help you find a top 40 band gig. I'm thinking, that's not really, I'd done that. I'd done that before in Virginia. But getting to realize now that that was exactly what I needed to do, and essentially what a lot of people do in Nashville, especially when you're starting out. You're playing covers, right? But you're going back to becoming a musician. You're learning to earn money, learning to pick up the phone and have a skill set. You have a skill set that you can get paid for. And if you're trying to get on your feet and support your starving artist career, well, then being a musician a hired gun. That is the best way to get paid. That is the best way to, stop being a starving artist, is to become a musician. Someone that can get hired regardless of the musical style, because styles will come and go. Scenes will come and go. Nashville is booming now, but I've told my friends there, they said, oh, it's booming and oh, everything's great. I said, you know what? LA was booming too. LA was booming, an opportunity. It was a virtual gold rush. And we were all out there chasing the dream, trying to become artists, right? And there are people in Nashville that are trying to become artists. Many of the singer types, songwriter types, they want to be artists. And if they're unable to play other people's material, then they may get stuck chasing that artist gerbil wheel. If they don't get picked up or signed or take off on TikTok or whatever it is people do now to become huge, they might miss out being able to play for a lifetime, right? If you're an artist and, you put out a hit single, if you don't follow that up with another hit single, if you don't have repeated success, you'll have a little career. But that career won't be sustained. And eventually it'll come crashing down. It can be very short-lived. You could be on top for a month, 2 months, 3 months. And you could be riding that out for a year or so, or maybe 2 years. But if you're unable to sustain that, if maybe it was a fluke, maybe your one hit that you wrote was a fluke, or maybe you're just not able to pull from that same well anymore. Maybe that one hit was just some, dumb luck, weird dumb luck. But if you're a musician, you're not going to be stuck only being able to play one style. Now, a guy like Slash is an incredible guitar player, right? He played the perfect parts on Appetite for Destruction and some other, Guns N' Roses hits, and he's had a long career from that, built from that, being an artist and blowing up, and that's propelled his career. But imagine if Slash had not made it in Guns N' Roses, if Guns N' Roses had not been signed, had not become a huge band, and he would not be able to sustain his career because the Sunset Strip was now dead. Because look, there's an important point here. The people that got rich off the Sunset Strip, catapulted into superstardom, they all left. Nobody can still be pounding those streets of the Sunset Strip over and over and over again. They got their opportunity and they left. And the people that helped them, get there, many were left in the dust, right? Many were left in the dust. They mined the gold of the Sunset Strip. I saw an article, right, that I was in a magazine with. It's, last Sunset Strip miners, or miners of the Sunset Strip. People were mining for gold. It was a mad gold rush to the Sunset Strip. But imagine, if Slash had not hit with Guns N' Roses, would he have been a musician that could have played country? Would Slash have been able to play a wedding? Would he have gotten calls to do that with his image and playing style? Probably not. Probably wouldn't have been a top 40 band guitarist or a Nashville Broadway guitarist. or a session guitarist or anything. He was purely the artist slash, right? And he's very lucky that he was able to sustain a career as good as he is, as good as what he does sounds. Understand that that's one side of the musician coin. Doing what he does is very specified, specific type thing. And that does it, that dream of becoming this huge rock star, being an artist, a recording artist. Rock star is an artist, right? An artist that the labels, the industry can sell. But if that dream doesn't take off for that recording artist, for that rock star, if that dream doesn't take off, then your musicianship could be the one thing that keeps you going. Your ability to adapt to musical styles, your ability to play many different things. That is what is going to give you a long career. Not being the coolest looking dude with a killer image and having your guitar slung down to your knees and showing up with a stack of Marshalls. That's all artist stuff right there. A musician shows up with the instrument that's right for the gig, plays the right rig for the venue, shows up, is on time, in tune, and ready to go. And so that's an important lesson, man. Artist or musician. Vicky Hamilton deals with artists. She promotes artists, right? A musician doesn't need anybody but himself to keep working. If you've built your skill level, if you've, if you're able to adapt and play many different styles, people like hanging out with you. People like how you play in multiple different situations. That's going to carry you farther if you don't become that huge rock star or pop star or hip hop or R&B artist. If you're not able to reach the highest highs, if you've developed your skills as a musician, well, then you can work for the rest of your life.